Hello, welcome to Movers and Shakers. I'm Diana Dodd, the Public Information Officer for the City of Lansing, Kansas. And today I have with me Lansing's favorite son, possibly, Mr. Tom Young.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. But.
Well, you've definitely been around here for a very long time. So that's why I had you here today. Let's talk about the Young family legacy in Lansing. So tell us a little bit about you.
I guess if you go all the way back, we'd have to start with my great-grandfather, Thomas Young, who my Uncle Tom was named after him, and he was killed in World War II. Oh. And he died 50 years to the day that our son Clay was born, so I thought that was kind of ironic. But my grandfather Tom Young and my great-grandfather Tom Young and my grandfather Frank Young both worked at the prison. They were the coal mining hoisting engineers.
Okay.
And then also my great uncle was the head engineer at the state prison for years. So got a long history, working with the state prison and growing up here. When I was a kid, Lansing was totally different. It had a 2-lane road, had downtown area. We could walk down to the downtown and the drugstore and get bomb pops and banana splits for like 25 cents. Right. So it was kind of crazy. I used to ride my tricycle in the middle of the highway, which if I did that today, my parents would get thrown in prison. But the Highway K7 out here was the only paved road in Lansing. They used shell that they dug out of the coal mines to line all the streets. Like Lois Street, where I grew up, was nothing but shell. It's kind of like an orange clay type material. And I think my dad told me I'm the only person that he knows that got his bicycle taken away from him the first day he learned how to ride it, because I got on it and I knew I was going to ride this thing, and I'd crash and I'd get up and I'd crash and I was covered head to toe with scratches and bleeding. So he took my bicycle away for a couple of days till I could promise that I wouldn't crash like that.
Right. Or at least give you a break and time to heal before you try it again.
Yeah, for sure. But, Lansing's changed a lot, so we watched the downtown get tore down in, I think, 68, and a 4-lane go through, and everybody said, oh, no, it's terrible, it's going to ruin the city. And, I can't imagine what Lansing would be like if it still had a 2-lane highway. It would be backed up for miles, but, it's progress. You got to do things like that.
But the downtown used to be about where the fire station and the UPS store and all that. And Low and Slow.
Yeah, we had a laundromat and a Walt's barber shop, and Doc had a doctor's office right there. And the Catholic Church, was still up on top of the hill.
Okay.
So all those houses got taken out. There was a bar and a gas station, Deep Rock. We used to watch Spencer Duggar and his band practice right outside the Deep Rock gas station, about a block from our house. And we had Wilson's Bar. I got stuck in a tree right behind Wilson's Bar one Saturday afternoon, and they couldn't get my foot out of the tree. So somebody went in and got all the guys that were in the bar and said, well, let's get Tom's foot out of the tree. So they were all, some of them tried pulling on the tree, and they couldn't get my foot out. And one of the little girls, my neighbor, she said, well, why don't you take his foot out of the shoe? So they unlaced it, and my foot slipped right out. And all these guys, well, I'll be your son of a gun. So they all walked back into the bar. But Lansing's changed a lot.
Right. It definitely has. A lot of people, I don't think, realize that the city was platted around the state penitentiary in the late 1800s, but it didn't actually incorporate until 1959.
Right. Dad was on the first Lansing City Council in 1959.
Right. He was also, he volunteered for the first volunteer fire department at the age of 18. Yeah. But he grew up in a house that was across the street from the prison. Right.
He told my grandma, he said, he told her mom, he said, we got to go to this meeting because he felt that it was really important that Lansing got a fire, department.
Right.
And it was kind of crazy. When I was a kid, all the dads in the neighborhood were on the volunteer fire department, and you'd hear the whistle go off because, they didn't have pagers and cell phones back then.
Right.
So you'd hear the fire whistle go off, and all these guys would drop what they're doing, hop in their trucks, and go about 3 blocks north and jump in the fire truck and go to the fire. So
speaking of
changed a lot.
Right. I mean, but we now have a city department, the city fire department. But your parents, both of them, were very involved in Lansing's community service was a big part of their lives.
I think Dad was on like 7 different committees after he retired. And
Right.
Mom was the first female postal carrier in the city.
Yes, I read that.
So she carried mail all over the place and
That's remarkable.
got her exercise in.
Right. That's a great way to get your exercise in because she
you know,
walked back. Right.
Oh,
They didn't drive the mail van.
Yeah.
She was walking.
Yeah, she had the big sack, but they were involved in Kiwanis and the Knights of Columbus, all kinds of things. He was the head bell ringer, so he would make sure everybody was lined up to ring bells for the Salvation Army.
Okay.
And he did that for years.
Right.
And they'd go to every art show, and Dad was an artist. I don't know if you knew that, but he's got hundreds of paintings and my brother Mike's an artist too. That's
Right.
all he's ever done.
Well, artistic endeavors kind of run in your family as well. I mean, Young Sign Company, that's an artistic
I get a
thing.
chance to do drawing once a year, every year about this time. In fact, I just got done doing 5 for Baker University.
Okay.
So every time they induct somebody in the Sports Hall of Fame, they send me photographs of who they're inducting.
All right.
And I do a little crosshatch pen and ink portrait of them on like a 5x7 card.
Nice.
And if you ever go to Baldwin City, I've got about 180 of them that line the wall of the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Even got to draw myself and Teresa, and we got inducted in 2005. So that was she
Nice.
played softball, I played basketball.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
That's very impressive. Yeah, I would like to see some of those drawings.
Yep.
So another thing that your parents did that was integral to the city was they founded the library.
Mm-hmm. Dad and Ken Ketchum, both of them were very instrumental in doing the library. He was always collecting books, and it used to be over at the rec center,
Right.
and then they built this building over here. So
Right.
very instrumental in making all that happen.
Right. And the library will hit its 30th anniversary next year.
Nice.
So we'll have to. I've already put a bug in Terry's ear about planning something big to celebrate the 30th. So maybe you and your family can be involved in that. I think that would be nice. A good honor for your parents. So, but you're very involved. Like you've been involved with the Lansing Educational Foundation for many years.
Yeah, I was on it for 11 years, and I was the president for 10 years.
Okay.
So then when our kids both got out of school, I figured it was time to step down and let somebody else take over.
Right. So. But I don't know that a lot of people understand exactly what the Educational Foundation does. So do you mind telling us?
It's like a supplemental income generator by private donations.
Okay.
And then they take those funds, and then they are allowed to do grants to teachers that apply for them if they want to do something that's above and beyond what the school district would be able to afford. Okay. They can apply for a grant, and some of them, several $1,000s or whatever, and then they can take that and do things above and beyond for their kids. And I think it's I can't remember right off the top of my head how many hundred or how many thousands we've generated and given back to the school district, but it's quite a bit.
Right.
But it's generosity of the public that makes it work. So.
Right, of course. And then you're currently involved with the Lansing Historical Society.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's in the depot that's over next to the fire station.
Right,
now,
yeah.
Was that depot originally part of downtown, or was that moved?
The depot, where Freddy's restaurant is.
Yes.
Yep, that's where the depot was.
Okay.
So there was a train track that went across K7 right there and went on up north and then crossed by the Leavenworth Plaza. But that was moved. They were used by, the building was used by Leavenworth County Co-op, and they stored fertilizer in it.
Oh.
So when they moved the building, we've got pictures of it, when they moved it from Freddy's up to where it currently is, it was in terrible shape. I mean, that was falling apart. So I was able to get like 14 inmates that I supervised for like every Monday night for a year. But they had to have either carpentry, plumbing, or electrical skills. So that was nice. So all of them, were tradesmen.
Right.
They did something that they shouldn't have, and they ended up in prison.
Right.
But they were great guys. I mean, if you just met them off the street, you had no clue that they were an inmate.
Right.
And most of them were just about ready to get out. In fact, I kept losing my electricians to parole, so had to keep getting new electricians. But we were able to strip out a lot of the old wood and replace it with new wood because the fertilizer had rotted out the wood. So it was in bad shape, but definitely, if you haven't been to the museum, you really need to check it out.
Well, what sort of things are in there?
Well, it used to be mostly stuff from the city of Lansing. People that would donate things that their grandmother, who went to 7 Mile School or something, things that were basically old Lansing. Okay. But now it's predominantly all prison stuff.
Oh, okay.
So if you go in there, all 3 rooms are people that were on death row and that were hung.
Right.
So that's a big thing. We actually built a replica of the gallows.
Oh.
The gallows, they used to hang people here from 1944 to 1965.
Right.
And then it was disassembled and moved to the State Museum in Topeka. And for like 25 years, we tried to get it back because we wanted it incorporated with the museum. And Jeff Pittman was real instrumental in doing that. And Teresa and I and Jeff went out there and tried to get it back. And they said, no, but we can give you the blueprints. So what we ended up doing, we got the blueprints from the state architect. When they disassembled it, they measured everything. And it's still there, but it's in like 3 different parts of the building. So the stairs are on the 2nd floor on the west end of the museum, and then the platform and the what they used to pull the lever and
the trap door.
It's in another part. So I was able to get the blueprints, and 3 of the other guys, 2 of them were on the board with me, and another guy from the city helped rebuild it or build a replica, and it took us 2 days to basically put it all together, and then a 3rd day to go in and do the landscaping. But we should have just done that to begin with instead of wasting 25 years. But it's non-operational. The trap door is just a fake. I didn't want anybody to have the opportunity to where they could accidentally hurt themselves.
All right.
And we've got it blocked off. So if you go on a prison tour, we've got a poster that shows the 15 inmates that were from the state that were hung on it. And there were also 4 military guys that were hung on that apparatus.
Okay.
And in fact, they say they disassembled it one time and moved it to Fort Leavenworth so that they could hang people up there because they didn't have a way to do it.
Right.
And then they put it all back, or took it apart and put it all back together back at Lansing. But it was housed in the warehouse right along Kansas Avenue.
Okay.
And the new replica is between C-Cell House and the hospital. So it's not in the actual spot where it was, but you can see it on the tour because it's all part of where the tour is.
Okay.
It's kind of weird. I had to look up how to make a noose. I was getting these things on little text messages that said, "Don't do it. You're not alone." I said, "It's not for me," And Teresa said, "Can you get that thing off of my kitchen table?" So I didn't realize it takes 18 feet of rope just for the noose.
Oh, my goodness.
I got a 25-foot length, and that wasn't enough. So I ended up having to get a 50-foot length. And by the time I got it all put together, I probably used 30-some feet to make it all work. But It's all hanging there in the prison.
So the prison tours are relatively new. You've been doing it for what,
this is our
2 years?
Third year.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, people, that's kind of a hobby for people. There are people who travel to see prisons, like they travel to see
every weekend we look and see where people are from, and they're from not only the United States, but other countries. People have come from Australia, and they wanted to check it out. And so Lansing actually has a tourist a go-to place.
Right.
And I think it would be great if we keep building on it, and it's not going to go anywhere, and as long as the Department of Corrections doesn't take it away from us. But
right. Well, I mean, and what would they do with it? I mean, you mentioned.
Well, originally it was slated to be torn down.
Okay.
And they had $10 million allocated to tear it down, which would have come out of taxpayers' money.
Right.
But that's when Jeff Pittman got involved, and he was able to convince them, hey, let's save this thing. They ended up spending like $500,000 to go back in and fix roofs and things like that to make it safe for everybody. And because they were just going to let it fall down. And in fact, they let the Department of Defense go in there and do training exercises and blew out like 150 windows.
Oh, wow.
So after all that, because they were going to tear it down, so it didn't matter. But then when we decided to make it into the museum or the tour guide, we had to go back in, and we actually were able to use inmate labor to help clean it up and replace windows. And so the Department of Corrections has been great as far as being able to work with them. And Nick Ball, who's the new warden, he's wonderful to help us out. And so we're going to keep a good rapport with them.
Right. Well, so the proceeds from the tours, does that support the historical society, or does part of it also support the upkeep of the prison?
Oh, it's kind of a combination. We're responsible for certain things to take care of, and then larger items they'll take care of the prison or the Department of Corrections. But we actually have hired tour guides now, so we pay and a lot of them are former correctional officers.
Okay.
Teresa and I are also tour guides. Neither one of us worked there, but we've been on enough tours with wardens and former wardens and deputy wardens and correctional officers to hear their stories, that we've kind of been able to put all their things together along with the actual history of, this building was built in this year and it was used for this. So more of a history type tour. So, and the interesting thing that I just found out, like last year, the service center was built between 1950 and 1953. When it was completed, Fog Allen brought the Kansas Jayhawks up for an exhibition basketball game in the gymnasium.
Okay.
And then Johnny Cash played there in 1970. So you get to go see the stage that Johnny Cash and his group, the Carter family, was on.
Wow.
So that he did 3 prisons in one day, which would probably never be duplicated, I would guess.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is quite a bit of history there beyond just the fact that it's the state prison.
Yeah, you can't get it all in 2 hours. 160 years.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln was president when it was built.
Wow, I didn't realize it went back that far. I thought it was built in the 1870s.
They had to stop construction for 2 years because they had to go fight in the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the money was allocated by the Kansas legislature in 1859.
Okay.
So before Lincoln was president.
Wow. That's some history.
Two of the buildings were completed in 1864, then another one in 1867, in 1888, and then they built the mine ran the mine from like 1879, 1881, I think is when it opened. They closed it down in 1947 when it was cheaper to get coal from Wyoming and by the train load and stuff. But there's a lot of interesting stories which we tell on the tours about mutinies and things that took place in the coal mine.
It's funny that you bring that up because I was when I took the job, I inherited some files, and one of them was had some historical society articles in it, and it was about a mutiny in the coal mine. Some miners held some guards prisoners for several days.
And my great-grandfather was running the hoist.
I wondered.
And he actually, an inmate scaled that wall. It was a 750-foot shaft. An inmate was down there, saw what was happening, and he took it upon himself to climb that shaft, no safety gear, no harness, climbed 750 feet and told everybody up top what was going on. And then my great-grandfather ran the cage down with all these guards that all had 6-shooters and stuff, and they took back control. Nobody got killed, so it was successful.
Your great-grandfather was there when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
And there was another one in the 30s that my grandfather was in charge of.
And what happened to that one?
Same sort of deal. But,
okay.
Those guys get fed up, and their mules never saw the light of day. So there's coal veins all underneath Lansing that people probably don't realize.
Right.
And it goes almost out to where the Catholic Church is, about a mile west. And,
okay.
And they've got it's all full of water now, but they used to run a jet pump 24 hours a day to keep it from flooding. But mules would pull these little coal carts down these tracks, and the inmates would fill the coal carts, and then the mules would pull them back to the elevator shaft, and then they bring the coal up, and they used the coal to heat state institutions, like not only the prison. They generated their own electricity and steam heat, but they also used the excess coal to heat the buildings in Topeka and other places around the state. They couldn't go into the private sector, but if it was for the public use, that's what they used it for. And what I've heard, it was worth millions of dollars in today's market, and what they actually mined.
Yeah,
but, you can get coal by the trainload now.
Right.
It's crazy how much coal they bring out of Wyoming.
Different. But I read that the mutinies mainly had to do with food. They wanted better food.
Well, that would be in the cafeteria. But they had riots over different things. When in 1969, Kansas Avenue had hundreds of Kansas Highway Patrol cars lining Kansas Avenue from one end to the other because they had a riot going on.
Oh, wow.
And I think they had a shakedown, and they didn't like that. so that was pretty interesting.
Definitely. Well, I really appreciate you being here, and I look forward to possibly taking the prison tour. I'll have to gear myself up for that. I get the heebie-jeebies in prisons, even ones that are, decommissioned. Still,
I think it's worth it. You can take away. I mean, we do a lot of kids that are in junior high have come through, and they walk in all cocky and stuff, and they walk out with their eyes wide open, like, wow,
right.
So it's an eye-opening experience.
So like field trips?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, we get them by the busload. And
I didn't think about that. That's actually really that's a good use for it. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
So I think it's going to be good.
Good. Well, and I had read when I was doing the research for this interview that there are jail houses, no prisons apparently, but jail houses around the country where people actually like spend the night. They're like run like hotels.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do paranormal stuff. We don't have anybody spend the night, but we actually have Apex Paranormal that comes in and kind of facilitates ghost hunting.
Right.
And there's been some times I've been in there at like 1 a.m. all by myself, and you get, because locking things up after the ghost hunting, the paranormal tours.
Right.
And I've had the hair on the back of my neck kind of raise up,
right.
and I know Teresa's had some things that have gone on, which we talk about in the tours sometimes.
Right.
But it makes you wonder.
Right.
The 160 years of things that have gone on in those places.
Right. Well, even if you don't believe in ghosts, there's definitely probably some negative vibes in there because it wasn't exactly a happy place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, not for everybody. Although we used to go in there and play them in basketball too.
You did? In high school?
No. After I got out of Baker, our City League basketball team, just about everybody had played college basketball. So we would play, Leavenworth Rec, A-League at Leavenworth, and we won it 10 years in a row. It was, we had a really good team.
Right.
Because everybody was good ball players. So, and then we would take that team into all the different prisons, and we played, the USP and the DB at Fort Leavenworth.
Okay.
And it was like game of the week. When we'd walk in there, they recognized, because we'd go in over and over, so they knew who we were. They had nicknames for all of us. And,
okay.
They called me Superman, and Danny Schmidt, they called him Horsehead because he had a mohawk and stuff.
Oh, that's funny.
But they had inmate referees.
Okay.
And when you'd walk in, like the DB, it was a game of the week, and they would have a DJ on the stage and playing music. Then they'd have the bleachers full of inmates, and they introduced the starting lineups, play the national anthem, and it was a big deal.
Okay.
Because it was like they get a touch of somebody from the outside.
Right.
And then we'd also go in to the maximum gym and the medium gym. There were two different gymnasiums here. And then we'd also played out on Highway 5 at the women's prison.
Okay.
When it was co-ed, so we played out there. And then there's also the Honor Farm at the United States Penitentiary that we would play those guys. And they have different levels. So these guys that were playing the outside teams, they were their best players. It was like their varsity.
Right.
They had intramurals. And we had some really good games that one guy, I'm wrestling over a loose ball for a rebound, and as we're both getting up off the floor, he looks at me, he said, "You do that again, I'm going to kill you." Oh. I said, "I believe it." So it was crazy. Another time I got hit in the back with a lag screw, and I felt something hit me. I looked down, there's this bolt on the floor like that, and I look over where the bleachers are, where all the inmates are, and I saw about 4 different rows converging on this one guy, and I figured he's the one that did it. About a month later, we're coming back in, I'm telling our escort, I said, "Yeah, last time I was here, I got hit in the back with a lag screw." And the escort said, "Well, what'd you do?" I said, "Well, what would you have done if I'd have told you something?" He said, "Well, we just stopped the game, locked everything down, taking everyone back to their cells."
Right.
I said, "That's why I didn't say anything." So,
well, that was awfully nice of you.
Oh, well, I didn't want to ruin it for everybody.
Well, I guess you weren't very hurt then. No. Okay. Well, good.
It wasn't bad.
So you, having lived in Lansing your entire life, you mentioned how much it has changed. Do you miss the downtown and the mom and pop like pharmacy and the shops, or?
Not really. I mean, At first it was hard to get used to because, you know, we had to drive all the way to Leavenworth. And back then I used to ride my bikes. I went to school in grade school up in Leavenworth, so I would ride my bike back and forth. And for me, it wasn't a big deal, but people that weren't able to go up to Leavenworth, we'd stop at Leavenworth Plaza back when it was built in 1967, so that was real easy to run up to and get stuff. But, you know, there for a while, it took a while to get used to not having it there.
Well, it was probably, I mean, because the highway came through and so it was just gone. It wasn't like it happened incrementally. So I would imagine that would be a bit jarring.
Yeah, it was one clean swoop. They took everything
sad.
down. But we got new service roads. The big service road that goes up by the church and stuff. We were able to skateboard on brand new asphalt. So that was pretty cool. You
know, kids still sometimes skateboard down DeSoto Road, from what I hear, the DeSoto Hill.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one.
That would be hard.
I wasn't that good, so I'd have to crash before I got to the bottom on that.
Right.
But,
yeah, well, I was never a skateboarder, so it's not something I would have ever have attempted in the first place.
Yeah, so we ended up buying my grandparents' house on the highway.
Okay.
And a funny story about that was I did lots of remodeling and stuff. That's kind of like my thing, like my project of the day. I do that, but back then I was even building stuff. The house, I think, was 1,200 square feet when we moved in, and like 7,000 square feet when we moved out.
Oh,
so that was my hobby. I just added onto the house. But the one time I had to replace a water line, and I had a big pile of dirt down at the bottom of the hill right next to the highway. So I went up and I made a sign in the house, and I came and I stuck it on top of that big pile of dirt, and it said West Tunnel Exit. And I left it there for a couple of days, and the correctional officers that drove by didn't think that was very funny, but, I got a kick out of it. So, you got to have a sense of humor sometimes.
Absolutely. But, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that they didn't think that was funny.
Yeah, and I was on the fire department for 8 years.
Okay.
So when I'd get the call, of course, we had pagers then, and
right.
I didn't have to drive. I could just run across the street. So a lot of times I'd be the first guy, the first one there gets to drive. So the guys always threatened they were going to put a red light, flashing light on my helmet because, they all had red lights in their dashboards and stuff or on their roof. But that was an interesting thing, being a volunteer for that long. And those guys, they spent so many hours there every week. And eventually, by working full-time at the sign company and stuff, I can't devote that much time. So I just felt bad that I gave it up after 8 years, but the things I saw, these first responders, you got to hand it to them. They are amazing.
They are indeed.
Got to have them.
Yes. Well, Tom, I really, really appreciate you coming, and thank you for giving us a Lansing history tour. Basically, is what we just got.
Well, it'd be interesting to see where it is in 50 years. So
it will be. It will be very interesting.
Although I don't think I'll have to worry about that. So.
I probably won't either.
Yeah, maybe my grandkids if I ever have any. So
yeah, you'll have to. Maybe you should show them this recording if it's still available, or make a recording of your own. And
well, that's one of the reasons why I do this project of the day is in case I'm not around. If I ever have grandkids, they'll be able to say, "That's what Grandpa did," or whatever. So at least they'll have an idea of what I was like.
Right.
For the most part. So, but it's fun. It keeps me busy.
Yeah. One of the advantages of the digital age, being able to record things like that. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Anytime. And you have been watching Movers and Shakers. I'm Public Information Officer Diana Dodd for the City of Lansing, Kansas.